Welcome, dear listener, to Legendary Sleep. Tonight, we dive deeper in Nahuatl Aztec mythology, into the heart of Mesoamerica. In this story, a mother faces betrayal, a warrior is born in fire, and the night sky becomes a battlefield. It is a tale steeped in reverence and awe, passed down through the centuries by the Aztecs. Their world was rich with symbolism, ritual, and stories that explain the rising of the sun, the blooming of maize, the very purpose of sacrifice and survival. This is the story of Huitzilopochtli's birth, a midnight battle to protect his mother. It is a story not just of blood and fire, but of cosmic balance, of the war between light and shadow, and of how the heartbeat of a people came to rest in the hands of one divine warrior. Before we begin, I love to hear what you would like to hear next, so if you want, share your favorite myth or legend from your country in the comments. Now, settle in, breathe deep, and prepare to be carried across time. Chapter 1. The Whispering Mountain. There was a time when gods and mortals shared the same breath, when mountains were not just stone, but sleeping giants of memory, and the stars were not distant lights, but windows to ancient souls. The world was thick with magic, in every leaf, in every breeze, in every shadow that passed over the land. On a sacred rise called Coyolxauhqui, the hill of the serpent, the wind always carried stories. It wound through tall grasses and around ancient stones, brushing softly against the skirts of a woman who swept its sacred steps. Her name was Coyolxauhqui. Her skirt shimmered like it was woven of living serpents, and her necklace, heavy against her chest, bore the hearts and hands of past offerings. She was no ordinary woman. She was the mother of all, the earth itself made flesh. Coyolxauhqui was the womb of creation, the bones of the mountains, the soil that birthed both flowers and storms. She had given birth to many. Her children were the stars, the moon, the elements. Some whispered that she had birthed time itself, yet her face was lined with quiet sorrow. As she swept the temple stairs in the silence of dawn, she was not regal, but humble. She did not command, she served. For Coyolxauhqui knew the cycles. She knew that creation was not a crown to wear, but a burden to carry. The wind stirred that morning with a curious energy. It spiraled above her head, then dipped downward, almost playfully. She looked up. There, drifting through the soft dawn light, was something strange. A ball of feathers. It glowed golden and red, like the sun wrapped in hummingbird wings. It floated gently down, dancing in the air as if guided by some unseen force. It came to rest before her. She looked at it, then gently bent to pick it up. And in that moment, everything changed. She gasped, not from pain, but from recognition. The feathers dissolved into her hands, into her skin, into her womb. There was no man, no lover, just a whisper of divinity entering her like a dream. Coyolxauhqui knew what this meant. This was divine. This was destiny. But not all who bore her name would agree. Far below, in the world of gods and warriors, her daughter Coyolxauhqui watched, and she was not filled with wonder. She was filled with wrath. Coyolxauhqui, whose name meant painted with bells, was radiant, fierce, and proud. She wore moonlight-like armor and moved with the grace of a warrior. She was the leader of her brothers, the Huitzilopochtli, the 400 gods of the southern stars. When word reached her that her mother had become pregnant by a mysterious feather, she did not see a miracle. She saw an insult. She saw a disgrace that stained the family and the honor of the gods. "Our mother has betrayed us," she said, her voice sharp as obsidian. The stars gathered around her, her brothers, glowing like embers in the dusk. Coyolxauhqui's anger was magnetic, and soon they followed her call, not just out of duty, but out of fear. For if a child born of no father could come to power, what would become of them? So they plotted. As the night grew deeper, their plan solidified like cooling stone. Before the child could be born, before the prophecy could unfold, they would ascend Coatepec and end the life of their mother. Coatlicue, who still swept the temple steps with her quiet hands, sensed the darkness rising. She knew her time was near, but so did the child within her. He stirred, he listened, and he waited. Chapter 2. The Gathering Storm. Coyolxauhqui did not act alone. Her words rang out like thunder across the divine plain, waking her brothers from their celestial slumber. Each one of the 400 gods, known as the Senson Huitzilopochtli, glimmered in the darkness like distant stars, their celestial essence stirred by the promise of action. These were gods of the southern sky, warriors of shadow and twilight, and when their sister called, they answered. In their hidden domain, among caves of obsidian and mountains wreathed in mist, the brothers gathered. They came from corners of the cosmos, walking through paths made of starlight and wind. They arrived clad in robes of black and blue, with weapons carved from ancient stones and tipped in cosmic fire. Coyolxauhqui stood at the center of them all, her arms raised, her hair cascading down like silver smoke. Her voice, once musical, now trembled with command. She told them of Coatlicue's strange new child, how he was conceived without a father, how he grew with unnatural speed in their mother's womb, how she dared to claim it was divine. They listened. Some were silent with uncertainty. Others clenched their weapons with anticipation. But slowly, a wave of unity spread through the crowd. This was a threat to their order. A single child, born outside the known laws, could shatter the harmony of their lineage. This could be the dawn of a new sun, a fire that burned too bright and swallowed their stars. Coyolxauhqui appealed not just to fear, but to pride. "Will we?" she said, her voice rising. "Let a child born of feathers claim the power we have guarded for eons? Will we let our mother, once the source of all, become the end of us?" A rumble of assent echoed through the gods. Spears struck the ground. Shields rang with resolve. The mountain would feel the weight of divine judgment. The traitor mother would fall before her child ever drew breath. That night, under a sky blanketed in starlight, they began their ascent. The 400 marched in silence, their feet brushing against the grasses of Coatepec, the sacred mountain that would soon run red. Coyolxauhqui led them, her armor gleaming with the borrowed light of the moon. But high above them, in the womb of Coatlicue, the unborn child listened. He heard each whisper of blade and boot. He felt each tremor of their steps as they climbed toward her. Though he had not seen the world, he understood it. Though he had not breathed air, he already burned with the fury of suns. Huitzilopochtli, the child of the feathers, was not afraid. He was waiting, not with fear, but with certainty. He had been born for this very moment, not a moment too soon, not a breath too late. Coatlicue, tired and silent, knelt in the temple at the mountain's crown. She felt the ache of betrayal more than the fear of death. Her hands, once so steady, now trembled over the stone. But her eyes, they held peace. She trusted the child within her, She knew he was not only her son, but the defender of balance, the sun waiting to rise. As the stars moved overhead and the sky began to shift, the final night descended, and with it came the storm. Chapter 3. The Breath Before Battle. Night blanketed Coyolxauhqui, thick and still, like velvet draped over the bones of the mountain. The stars wheeled slowly above, unaware or perhaps indifferent to the blood that would soon be spilled beneath their cold gaze. The gods of the southern sky climbed, step by careful step, their weapons singing quiet songs of war in the dark. Every heartbeat, every breath, brought them closer to the summit. Coyolxauhqui led them with unwavering certainty. Her silver bells jingled softly at her ankles and wrists, not with joy, but with tension. Each step was a drumbeat of destiny. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned the rise ahead. She knew her brothers well, bold but brash, powerful yet easily swayed. Their loyalty rested not in love, but in shared pride, wounded pride. And wounded pride can burn brighter than any flame. She could feel the mountain breathing beneath them, the way the air thickened with energy, the faint tremble underfoot. Coyolxauhqui was alive, and it knew what approached. The gods of the south, glittering like a storm of stars. Back at the summit, in a quiet chamber woven of stone and smoke, Huitzilopochtli remained still. She had not slept, but she did not waver. Her hands rested gently upon her swelling womb, which now shimmered faintly with the light of dawn not yet risen. Her son was ready. She could feel it, not with a mother's instinct, but with something deeper, an ancient knowing carved into the bones of the world. He was not like her other children. He did not stir with restlessness or kick in irritation. He listened. He watched. He waited. Huitzilopochtli, whose name would one day be spoken in both fear and reverence, was forming not just as a god, but as an answer. Huitzilopochtli whispered to him softly. Her voice was barely audible, like the rustle of feathers across stone. "My son," she said, "they are coming. Do not rise in hate. Rise in truth." And he stirred, coiled like a serpent in golden slumber. Elsewhere on the mountain's steep face, one of the younger gods hesitated. His name was Tepin, and unlike the others, he carried no blade, only a staff etched with the names of stars. He was a thinker, a questioner. And though he followed his siblings up the slope, doubt bloomed in his heart like a slow, persistent flower. He turned to Coyolxauhqui and asked in a low voice, "What if we are wrong?" Her eyes, glowing like twin moons, turned to him. "Then we will be wrong together, but we will not be forgotten." Tepin said no more, but he felt the silence press tighter around him. The night seemed to close in, whispering not of victory, but of fate. And fate, he realized, was not something that could be outvoted or shouted down. It was already unfolding, petal by petal. The mountain grew steeper. Their breaths came quicker. Clouds now brushed against them, dampening the warmth from their skin. The summit was close, and still, no one spoke of mercy. Above them, the temple flickered with faint blue flame. Huitzilopochtli sat unmoving, her hands now clasped. Around her, the wind curled and whistled, carrying songs sung in the first days of the world, songs of beginnings, songs of ends. And within her womb, Huitzilopochtli finally opened his eyes. There was no fear in him, only purpose. He saw the future as clearly as the moon sees the sea. His name was already etched into the stones, the wind, the very sun that had not yet risen. He knew he would rise in blood, but it would be the blood that gave balance to the world. He breathed deeply, his first breath of power, and the temple cracked with light no mortal eye could see. The stars paused. Time slowed. Chapter 4. The Awakening of the Warrior. The air grew thick with anticipation as the first cold breaths of dawn seeped through the cracks of the ancient temple. Silence hung heavily, like a veil draped over Coatepec's summit, but beneath it, the mountain pulsed with the promise of destiny. The gods of the southern sky climbed steadily, their shadows stretching long and thin as they prepared for the reckoning. Inside the temple, Coyolxauhqui's breath came steady and sure. She sat upon the stone altar, surrounded by the scent of copal incense and the faint hum of sacred chants that drifted on the wind from distant temples below. Her hands rested on her belly, which now glowed faintly with a soft, golden light, like the first rays of sun brushing against the horizon. The child within her was no ordinary child. Huitzilopochtli was a warrior born of mystery and fire, his very essence forged in the heart of the cosmos. He had waited patiently in the darkness, gathering strength and clarity, ready to face the tempest that was closing in. His arrival was not simply a birth. It was an awakening, a declaration that the balance of power was about to shift. Outside, Coyolxauhqui and her army reached the final stretch, their footsteps muffled by the damp earth and thickening mist. The goddess of the moon and her 400 brothers stood before the temple, their faces hard with resolve. Each one carried weapons honed by the hands of fate itself, glinting with an otherworldly light. Their plan was ruthless, forged in the fires of jealousy and fear, to strike down Coyolxauhqui and the unborn threat before the sun could rise anew. Yet, as Coyolxauhqui lifted her arm to signal the charge, a strange stillness settled over the scene. The stars above seemed to flicker uncertainly, as if hesitant to witness what was about to unfold. Within the womb, Huitzilopochtli felt the first sharp stirrings of purpose. His eyes, though not yet open to the world, perceived the gathering storm. His senses, sharpened beyond mortal measure, absorbed the tension and the shadows creeping toward his mother's sanctuary. But he did not panic. Instead, he felt a fierce calm settle over his being. A sudden warmth flooded his form, spreading like wildfire through his limbs. His small hands clenched with power. His heart beat with the rhythm of drums heard in distant temples. He was not simply defending his mother. He was defending a new dawn, a promise etched in blood and light. With a burst of energy, he broke the confines of the womb, not with cries or tears, but with a radiant, blazing light that cut through the temple's stone walls and spilled out onto the mountaintop. The air itself seemed to vibrate with the sound of his arrival, a chorus of war cries and celestial hymns woven into a single breath. Coyolxauhqui, bathed in this unearthly glow, looked up with eyes wide but serene. She knew the moment had come. Her son had risen, not only to live, but to fight. From the shadows, Coyolxauhqui's face twisted with shock and disbelief. The child she had sought to destroy was no helpless infant. He stood, radiant and formidable, wielding a weapon forged from fire and sunlight, a hummingbird spear that shimmered with the colors of the dawn. The battle erupted with a fury that shook the mountain's bones. Huitzilopochtli moved with a speed and grace that belied his youth, his every strike a flash of brilliance, a spark of divine justice. The moon goddess and her brothers fought with desperate ferocity, their blades clashing against the sun god's weapon in a tempest of light and shadow. The night sky itself seemed to weep with thunder and lightning as the forces clashed. A cosmic struggle played out on stone and cloud. Coyolxauhqui, though fierce, could not match the raw power of her brother's divine wrath. One by one, the 400 gods fell, scattered like shattered stars across the mountaintop. In the midst of the chaos, the mountain wept ancient tears, rivers carving paths down its sides, as if mourning the violence, but also heralding the birth of something new and eternal. As the battle reached its crescendo, Huitzilopochtli faced Coyolxauhqui herself. Their eyes locked, one blazing with the light of the sun, the other shimmering with the cold glow of the moon. With a final sweeping strike, the warrior sent his sister tumbling down the cliffs of Coyolxauhqui, her body broken, but her spirit unyielding. The mountain fell silent once more. The dawn broke, spilling gold across the horizon. Coyolxauhqui, her strength spent but her heart full, embraced her son. Together, they stood at the summit, gazing out over the world that had shifted beneath their feet. Huitzilopochtli's birth was not merely the arrival of a god. It was the birth of a legacy, a promise that the sun would rise and fall with the courage of warriors and the strength of a mother's love. And as the first light of day spread across the lands below, the echoes of that midnight battle became a song sung by generations, a reminder that even in the darkest hours, the light will always find its way. Chapter 5. Shadows and Stars. The mountain had quieted, but its echoes were far from gone. The breath of battle still lingered in the air, heavy with the scent of smoke and sacred incense. The sky, once a deep velvet canvas, now hinted at the promise of dawn. Yet, even as light edged the horizon, the night shadows clung to Coyolxauhqui stones like silent watchers. Huitzilopochtli stood tall at the summit, the morning sun casting long golden fingers over his warrior form. His spear, the hummingbird's wing, glimmered faintly, still warm with the power of his victory. But his eyes, fierce and bright, looked beyond the mountain's edge, beyond the immediate peace. His birth was only the beginning, a spark that ignited a much larger story. Coyolxauhqui sat beside him, her breath slow and steady after the storm of the night. Her hands rested on the earth, feeling the pulse of the land beneath, the steady heartbeat of a world waiting to be reborn. She saw her son not just as a god, but as a symbol, a bridge between the heavens and the earth, the eternal dance of light and shadow. The tale of their struggle was more than a family drama. It was a cosmic narrative, one that explained the cycles of day and night, war and peace, life and death. Coyolxauhqui, though defeated, was not simply an enemy but a necessary force. Her fall from the mountain a reason for the moon's phases, her fragmented body scattered across the sky as the stars. This myth lived in the hearts of the Nahuatl people, woven into their ceremonies and their understanding of the universe. Huitzilopochtli was the sun incarnate, the warrior who led them through countless battles, the source of their strength and survival. But for now, at the moment of his birth and victory, there was a quiet stillness, a pause to breathe, to remember the weight of what had been won and what still lay ahead. Yet, even as the sun climbed higher, the whispers of the other gods could be heard in the wind. The world was watching. The balance had shifted, and with it, the fate of all creation. In this moment, Huitzilopochtli understood the path before him. one of endless struggle, sacrifice and protection. His birth was not a singular event, but a call to eternal vigilance, the endless battle to keep darkness at bay. The mountains seemed to sigh beneath them, the stones warmed by the morning light, carrying the story forward into the hearts of those who would listen, who would remember, who would carry the flame into the night. And so, with the dawn breaking softly over Coyolxauhqui, the sun god and his mother stood together, ready to face the long road ahead, the promise of new beginnings cradled gently in their hands. Chapter 6. The sun's path begins. As the golden light stretched across the land, Coyolxauhqui's summit bathed in warmth and quiet promise. The sky was no longer a canvas of stars, but a vast blue expanse, welcoming the sun god's first steps beyond the mountain's edge. Huitzilopochtli, still radiant from his birth and battle, felt the weight of the world settle gently upon his shoulders. He was not simply a newborn warrior. He was the embodiment of light itself, the fierce protector destined to guide the Nahuatl people through darkness and despair. Below, the valley stirred with life. Birds took flight, their songs echoing the promise of renewal. The maize fields, sacred and vital, shimmered under the morning sun, as if bowing to the god who had just claimed his place in the cosmos. Coyolxauhqui watched her son with a quiet pride, tempered by the knowledge that this was only the beginning of his journey. She had carried him through betrayal, battle, and birth, but the world beyond Coyolxauhqui was vast and filled with unknown dangers. The story of Huitzilopochtli's birth was no mere tale of survival. It was a call to action. The sun must rise each day, relentless and unyielding, fighting back the darkness with every breath. The Nahuatl understood this deeply. They saw the cycles of the heavens as reflections of their own struggles and triumphs. In temples far from the mountain, priests prepared rituals in honor of the newborn god. Flames flickered against stone walls, and chants rose like waves, carrying prayers to the heavens. The people looked to the sky, hopeful and determined, knowing their fate intertwined with the path of this warrior sun. Yet, shadows remained. The defeated Coyolxauhqui was not forgotten. Her story, scattered across the night sky, was a reminder that light and dark must coexist, that victory always carries its own cost. For Huitzilopochtli, this balance would be his eternal task, to wage war against the night, to defend his mother's honor, and to guide his people toward the dawn. And so, with the sun climbing higher each day, the warrior god began his journey across the heavens, a path marked by courage, sacrifice, and the endless promise of light. Chapter 7. The Eternal Struggle. The sun had claimed its place in the sky, bold and unyielding. Yet the story of Huitzilopochtli was far from finished. Each day he would rise anew, a warrior born in battle, carrying the weight of not only his own destiny, but that of an entire people. The Nahuatl saw in him more than just a god. He was their protector, their champion in the endless war against darkness and chaos. His birth was a promise etched into the fabric of the cosmos, a promise that no matter how deep the night, the light would return. As Huitzilopochtli journeyed across the heavens, he waged constant battle against the forces of night, the moon, the stars, the shadows. Each was a reminder of the defeated Coyolxauhqui and her brothers, scattered across the sky, yet never fully extinguished. They lingered, waiting, threatening the fragile balance. The Nahuatl honored this struggle with rituals of blood and flame. Each sacrifice, each prayer, was a renewal of the pact between God and mortal, a reminder that survival required vigilance and courage. But beyond the ceremonies and the myth lay a deeper truth. The cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, of creation and destruction, was eternal. Huitzilopochtli's battle was not a single moment frozen in time, but a perpetual dance, as vital and natural as the rising and setting sun. For those who listened closely, the story carried a message that within each of us lies the power to face our own shadows, to rise again after every fall, to carry the flame forward even when the night seems endless. And so, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the stars began to twinkle once more, the Nahuatl people looked upward, finding comfort and strength in the warrior god who never rested, who never yielded. Huitzilopochtli's birth was more than a myth. It was a living legacy, a beacon in the darkness, a reminder that light will always find a way. Chapter 8. The Dawn of Legend. The battle on Coyolxauhqui was more than a single moment in time. It was the beginning of a cycle that would echo through the ages. Huitzilopochtli, born in fire and fury, had secured the safety of his mother and claimed his place as the great sun warrior. But as dawn broke over the ancient land, the world was forever changed. The sky, once dark and filled with stars that whispered secrets of betrayal and war, now glowed with the promise of light. The moon goddess Coyolxauhqui, shattered yet immortalized in the heavens, became a reminder of the delicate balance between light and shadow. The Nahuatl people looked up at the rising sun, their hearts filled with hope and reverence. They knew that each day brought a new battle, a new chance to rise against darkness and uncertainty. Huitzilopochtli's journey was far from over, but his birth had set in motion the eternal dance of life and death, night and day, fear and courage. Coyolxauhqui, the Earth Mother, held her son close, not just in the moment of his birth, but in every sunrise that followed. Her strength, her sacrifice, became the foundation of a legacy that would endure beyond the reach of time. In this story, there is more than conflict and conquest. There is also love, the fierce, protective love of a mother, the unyielding courage of a child, and the hope that even the darkest night will give way to dawn. So as you close your eyes tonight, remember the light that burns inside you, the warrior spirit that faces shadows and rises. Like Huitzilopochtli, you carry the power to protect, to fight, and to bring forth the dawn. Thank you for joining me for tonight's myth. If you made it this far in the video, you are a legend. If you enjoyed this story, you'll find more Aztec myths in the video description. Please like and subscribe if you found comfort or inspiration in this story, and share where in the world you're listening from. I'd love to hear your favorite myths and stories from your country too. May your night be peaceful, your dreams radiant, and your sleep truly legendary.